When I look back at my school days, the first thing that floods my memory isn't the classrooms, the chalk dust, or the smell of fresh notebooks. It's the laughter. Sharp and cruel, that used to echo in the hallways every time I walked by. The kind of laughter that wasn't born from joy but from mockery, from the way my oversized glasses slipped down my nose, from my secondhand shoes that squeaked against the linoleum floors, from the fact that I didn't fit in with the rest of them, the so-called popular kids who thrived on tormenting anyone they considered weaker, and I was their favorite target. I remember clutching my lunch tray so tightly, my knuckles turned white as they stuck out their feet to trip me, sending my food spilling across the cafeteria floor while they clapped and howled like it was a comedy show. I remember the sting of their words, loser, nerd, pathetic, and how those words burrowed into my skin deeper than any bruise could, making me question every part of myself. The teachers saw it sometimes, but most turned away, dismissing it as kids being kids. And I, too timid and ashamed, never had the courage to tell my parents the full truth. So I carried the weight alone, bottling the hurt, until it became a fire smoldering inside me, a fire I didn't know yet how to control. There were days I wanted to disappear, days I locked myself in my room after school and stared at the ceiling wondering if life would always feel this suffocating. But something in me refused to give up completely, and in those silent hours, I found comfort in books, in learning, in dreaming about a world bigger than that small town and those cruel faces. I imagined myself one day walking into a room where they would have no power over me, where the tables would turn, though at the time it felt like a fantasy too far from reality. Still, every insult, every shove into lockers, every laugh at my expense planted a seed of determination deep within me. A determination I kept hidden, like a secret weapon, waiting for the right moment to unleash, and though I didn't know it then, the very people who tried to break me were unknowingly building the foundation of the strongest version of myself. High school became a battlefield I learned to navigate. But it wasn't until one particular incident that everything shifted. I was in 10th grade, standing in front of the entire class to present a science project I had poured weeks into, when one of the bullies, Jason, the ringleader, with his smug smile and loud voice snatched my poster from my hands, crumpled it, and tossed it into the trash while everyone laughed, the humiliation burning so hot I felt tears pressing at the corners of my eyes. But instead of running away this time, something inside me hardened. I looked straight at him, and, for the first time, didn't shrink away. I picked up my project from the trash, smoothed it out, and continued my presentation with a trembling voice that grew stronger with each word. That moment was small, maybe even insignificant to the others. But to me it was a spark, the beginning of a realization that I didn't need their approval to keep going, I just needed my own courage. From that day, I decided I would work harder than anyone else, not to impress them, but to build a future where I wouldn't have to answer to people like them ever again. I buried myself in books, technology, and business magazines. Learning about leaders who had once been underdogs, I stayed up late teaching myself skills most kids my age didn't care about. Coding websites, designing small business ideas, reading everything I could get my hands on. The more I learned, the more I felt powerful, like I was slowly constructing armor piece by piece. And every time they mocked me for being too nerdy or boring, I silently told myself, one day they would see me not as the boy they bullied, but as someone they couldn't touch. And though I was still outnumbered and outshouted in those years, the quiet resilience growing inside me became my shield, transforming every insult into motivation, every shove into fuel, until the very idea of proving them wrong became the purpose I carried like a flame. College was my chance to start over. And when I walked onto that campus, thousands of miles away from the kids who once tormented me, I felt like I had finally been given a blank canvas. No one knew me as the bullied boy anymore, and for the first time, I could shape my identity without the weight of their laughter. I threw myself into my studies with relentless energy, majoring in business and computer science, because I knew deep down that knowledge was the weapon that would one day tip the scales. I worked part-time jobs to support myself, from waiting tables to tutoring, and though it was exhausting, it taught me grit, it taught me discipline, it taught me how to value every dollar and every hour. I joined clubs, pitched ideas, entered competitions, sometimes failing spectacularly, sometimes winning small, but always learning. By my senior year, I had already launched my first startup, a small tech service that began as a dorm room idea and slowly started gaining traction. Investors noticed, professors admired my persistence, And suddenly, I wasn't the invisible kid anymore. I was the young man people came to for advice, for solutions, for leadership. It wasn't just about proving the bullies wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I had what it took to rise, to create, to stand tall in a world that once felt determined to keep me small. And though success was still far away, I could feel the momentum building, like a tide that couldn't be stopped, and deep inside, I knew I was only just beginning the climb. The years after college were grueling but transformative. I launched company after company, some failing within months, others surviving long enough to teach me the art of resilience, and eventually, after countless sleepless nights, empty bank accounts, and moments of doubt, I built the startup that changed everything, a tech firm that solved a problem so many businesses faced yet no one had addressed effectively. Slowly, the company grew, first hiring 2 employees, then 10, then 100. Until one day I found myself sitting at the head of a boardroom table as the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. My name on magazines, my story shared as inspiration, but what most people didn't know was that behind the polished success lay the scars of my school years. Scars that fueled me, that reminded me every time I doubted myself of how far I had come. I built my empire on principles opposite to those I learned from bullies: kindness, respect, vision, and persistence, and those values became the pillars that attracted talent, investors, and loyalty. Still, as I sat in meetings with powerful executives, signing deals that changed industries, a part of me couldn't forget the faces from the past. The kids who once thought I'd never amount to anything. And though I didn't chase revenge, I knew one day fate would bring us face to face again, and when that day came, I would stand not as their victim, but as their superior. That day came sooner than I expected. It was during a round of hiring for senior management that I saw the names on the resumes, familiar names. Jason and a few others, the very bullies who had made my school years a nightmare. Now desperate for opportunities, their careers stagnant, their lives nowhere near the empire I had built. I felt a rush of emotions: anger, satisfaction, even pity as I interviewed them, sitting across the table as they nervously tried to impress me, unaware at first that the CEO they were speaking to was the boy they once mocked. When I finally revealed my identity, the silence in the room was deafening. Their eyes wide, their mouths stumbling over apologies, excuses, explanations of how young and stupid they had been. I listened calmly, every word reminding me of the years of humiliation, but I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to, because the power had already shifted entirely. I told them I had built a company where respect was the first rule, where no one would be treated as less than, and that people like them, the ones who thrived on belittling others, had no place in it. I didn't hire them, not out of cruelty, but because I owed it to myself and my team to keep the culture untainted. As they walked out, their shoulders slumped. I felt a strange sense of closure. Not from crushing them, but from knowing I had risen so high above their cruelty that they couldn't touch me anymore. They regretted everything. I could see it in their eyes. But for me, revenge wasn't about making them suffer. It was about standing tall, unbroken, unstoppable. The bullied kid turned CEO, proving once and for all that no amount of cruelty can hold back a soul determined to rise.